Hey Rush fans, welcome to episode number 78 of Rush Roundtable. Have you ever thought what it would be like to completely rearrange an album's track order or track listing? Perhaps to make it flow better, switch around some opening and closing tracks, or just completely rearrange it for personal preference? Well, today we do just that. Now, of course, we know that everything Rush does we think is perfect, but we have this daunting task where we completely reimagine an album's track listing. So we're going to take on that task, and we hope that you will do it with us in the comments section. Enjoy! This episode of Rush Roundtable is sponsored by Heroes Hideout. Heroes Hideout is your local toy store. They are known for carrying a massive selection of items, including Star Wars, Marvel, WWE, Hot Wheels, and of course, Funko Pops. Heroes Hideout is the place to be if you are looking for hard-to-find Grail items. Check them out at heroeshideout.com and use code RUSHFANS for 10% off your order.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to this episode of Rush Roundtable, where we're going to do an exercise that I did a long time ago that I really wanted to turn into a discussion. So for today's topic, we're going to rearrange a Rush album to the track listing to maybe make it flow better or switch out the opening and closing tracks or just rearrange it for personal reference. So for this episode, we gathered a crew of younger Rush fans for this, mostly because, they have the technology and the streaming apps out there where they can kind of shuffle songs. So, I know me, you all guys probably did it, shuffling those songs, kind of putting it out of order, kind of making it sound better, So that's what we're going to discuss now. So we're going to start off with Tristan. So he's going to read the track listing from the album that he chose. Then he's going to read off the rearranged song order. And then he's going to explain why he did that. And then we're going to discuss it. So Tristan, if you want to start us off, you can get going.
Awesome. So the album that I chose is Presto, and the order of the song listing on Presto, as we know it, is Show Don't Tell, Chain Lightning, The Pass, War Paint, Scars, Presto, Superconductor, Anagram, Red Tide, Hand Over Fist, and Available Light. And for my rearrangements, I put Show Don't Tell. I kept Show Don't Tell as the first track. Then second is Presto, then The Pass, Available Light, Hand Over Fist, Scars, Superconductor, Chain Lightning, Red Tide, Anagram, and Warp. Yeah. And the reason for the rearrangements, I kept Show Don't Tell as the opening song because the whole intro comprised of the loose percussion and the keyboard chord followed by that great riff. It was just a great way to open an album, and I thought, there's no better way to open an album like that riff. So that was too good to leave out as an opener. Next, I placed the title track at the second spot. So this is largely due to me feeling that the title track deserves more love. Indeed, Rush played it live once, but I think the title track, like other Rush title tracks, this was so heartfelt and personal, so I thought it deserved the second spot because of that. Coming out of that, I kept The Pass as the third track. I think it's important to keep a rather well-known song fairly early on in an album's track listing. Commercially speaking, Presto flew lower under the radar commercially as opposed to its, earlier predecessors like Signals, Moving Pictures, etc. But The Pass relieves the album by offering a hit early on. Next, I placed the original Presto's closing track, Available Light, at number 4. It ties in with the somber theme of darkness and light as The Pass. The No Thrill, No Tragedy lyric from The Pass can easily be followed up by a glimpse of hope with the I Want to Look at Life in the Available Light lyric in Available Light. It provides a sort of emergence from the darkness of the past. Also, Available Light has a powerful outro characterized by a repeated chorus fade out, during which the song reaches a climax. The outro of the song would tie in gently with the soft intro, Hand Over Fist, which I placed next at track 5. After that, we get down to the bass line Scars, which is characterized by a dark, ominous tone throughout, with Neil's rhythmic West African influenced drumming carrying the song. It rides the same ethereal wave, if you will, as the lyrics about scars of pleasure, scars of pain, etc. I decided to follow Scars up with Superconductor. I thought that following an exceptionally ambient and thought-provoking song with a relatively more straightforward rock song was a tasteful change of pace. Again, the presto, it works, as the whole album marked Rush really toning down their sound from, say, Hemispheres of Farewell to Kings over the decades to kind of slowed everything down. They kind of toned it down. So I thought that was a nice change of pace. Succeeding Superconductor's Chain Lightning, another great straightforward rock song. The playful outro is featuring the "That's Nice" voice flowed well into the. For me, I think it flowed well into the piano-rich intro of Red Tide. I just thought, imagine having that as the order of the listing. You have "That's Nice" and the last "Bam," and then the switching of the track, and then you have the wispy piano intro. I thought that kind of complemented. That kind of fit together nicely. It made me feel like one chapter of a mystery book was ended and another was beginning, so to speak. Rush made the right move with opening a song like Red Tide with graceful piano notes, in my opinion. Anagram for Mongol follows Red Tide as 10th and second last song in my new track listing rearrangements. It's a solid song, and I love Neil's exercising of literary devices, wordplay, and poetry. To close the album is War Paint. I really love the song, however, that's exactly why I decided to move the originally 4th song on the album all the way to 10th. I find that a lot of Rush's most thought-provoking songs are placed towards the end of the album, or end of an album, between the wheels, Mystic Rhythms, etc. Get the idea. Farewell to Kings, Permanent Waves, all those other albums. I won't name those songs as we all know what they are. I mean, I've named a few. You get it. But I think Warpaint has a very victorious lyric after going through ups and downs throughout the newly arranged presto. The whole girls and boys together lyric marks a union of ideas. We find that we can put faith back into humanity and trust ourselves with knowledge and heart. The lyric, let's paint the mirror black, the mirror always lies, meaning we don't need external recognition. Believing in oneself is reason enough to live. It's time to take everything and everyone at face value and ditch the taboos of life, upbringing, debunk myths, and break stigmas and stereotypes. Again, referencing the lyric, paint the mirror black, the mirror always lies. And on top of that, like Available Light, Warpaint has a powerful outro characterized by a repeated chorus fade out. And again, I think Rusher masters at that kind of outro. So to kind of summarize again, my new Presto track listing is Show Don't Tell, Presto, The Pass, Available Light, Hand Over Fist, Scars, Superconductor, Chain Lightning, Red Tide, Anagram, and Warping.
I like it.
Down so that I wrote all that down so that I wouldn't forget everything that so that's why I'm looking off to the side all this time.
Yeah,
that's
I
totally
like
understandable. I like it too. I like that you. Oh, what were you saying?
I was just going to say, and plus, I always considered Presto kind of like my baby, because that for me is like an album that I've always been deeply about. It's introspective. It's thought.
Oh, definitely.
It's thoughtful. It's always been an overlooked album just because it's it's late '80s Rush. Who cares about that?
Sure. Yeah,
I
exactly.
like it for that reason. So
Presto. Yeah, Presto was literally the first album that, and this is just from, I think you guys all the Spirit of Radio Greatest Hits CD. Mm-hmm. It just spans from the debut album to Hold Your Fire. Yeah. When I first saw that, I wasn't really into Rush too much. I thought Hold Your Fire was their final album. And so it really just does kind of, and then when you look in like the retrospective albums, it kind of shows that does Presto start retrospective 3 or something? If you guys remember.
Yeah, I don't remember, but it's split.
Yeah, I'm not sure
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
But yeah, so Presto is kind of, I think it sparks a different era of Rush. So I think that's also why it's overlooked a lot, which is, it's unfortunate with a song like The Past, which, people could argue that's one of their greatest songs. But the first thing I thought when Tristan put Presto so early in the album, the first thing I thought of was the Time Machine tour, because if you remember, they played Presto very early in the set. So I kind of made that connection of how important that song is. And then the second thought I had was, when you think about it, a main difference between albums that 30 years ago, 20, 30, 40 years ago, and like now, are obviously now it's all Spotify, shuffling, all that. Back then you have the vinyls, and it's split into side 1 and side 2. So I looked, and it might have been on the cassettes or vinyls or both. Side 1 ends with Presto, and side 2 begins with Superconductor. So I guess Presto was, even for side 1, Presto was always kind of like a closing track, maybe. Maybe that leads to why it's overlooked or not. And having Superconductor on side 2, the first track on side 2, they put a lot of weight on that, because, people like my dad listening, when you flip the track, when you flip the disc, the first song of side 2, that's the first song that you're going to hear too. And if you notice, like a lot of, CDs or, vinyls back then, the hits of the album, like you'll see number 1 is the hit, and then you'll be like, oh, then another, blockbuster song is like song 6 or 7, mostly because, they want those songs, the main songs, to be, number 1, number 2, the ones that people listen to, because you can't really
What is
skip.
the hit
So
on Presto, though?
That's the thing.
What song really stands above the rest on Presto? I don't know if there is one.
That's the thing.
Pass.
The Past, definitely.
Because the thing for me with Presto, why I never really got into, because honestly, in the last year, really, it's probably the last Rush album I've really gotten into, and I really like it a lot, aside from Superconductor. I really like that album a lot. And but to me, like, that album's not very well represented on any of their live recordings.
Anything, no.
Yeah, you hear The Pass on like 4 different tours, and that's it. You heard Presto, Time Machine, and I loved it, because when I saw it live, I really enjoyed it. And it's kind of funny, because Presto, to me, doesn't even sound like it goes with the rest of the album. Like, to me, it always it always stood out as almost it doesn't fit with the rest of the songs on that album, just because I think I don't know, it just does, just different. But yeah,
I thought you were going to put Presto first, honestly, Tristan. I thought you were going to put the title track first. And and when you said you were doing Presto, I had no idea what you were going to put last. I mean, but I like how you put Warpaint last, and you explained how that. I think it makes sense. I mean, of course, we as fans think everything Rush does is perfect. Well, maybe not all of us, but a lot of us do. But I mean, I think you did a really good job. I like it.
Yeah, and one of the things I was interested in is when you read that first order, I really like how they have Available Light as the closing track on the album. I think it fits really well. So I was interested how you were going to, explain why you put it earlier, right after The Past. But I thought it made a lot of sense, having that contrast between the darker ideas in The Past and then, a little bit more optimistic in Available Light. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
I mean, also, for me personally, again, from a personal point of view, Available Light for me is sort of like a life anthem for me. I don't know. I just really connected with that song. I don't know why. So that was really another personal reason I kind of put it further up.
Available Light feels like it's like 3 or 4 minutes too short to be honest. Like, it feels like it should be like another epic. It's very good.
A Natural Science closing.
Yeah.
All right.
Exactly.
Pat, you got quite the task to follow that up. That was really good. Really
well
thought out.
Yeah.
So.
Sorry.
So we're going to stick in the late 80s for mine one. So I rearranged Hold Your Fire. And as you guys know, starts with Force 10, Time Stands Still, Open Secrets, Second Nature, Prime Mover, Lock and Key, Mission, Turn the Page, Taishan, and High Water. Now that makes sense because Force 10 and Time Stand Still, those are the hits. Those are the hits of the album. So they kind of jam those in front. Force 10 was I think if you remember, Force 10 was like a last minute track, and they were like, wow, this sounds really good, radio friendly. Let's put it at number 1. But for my interpretation of this, I have Prime Mover as first, then Second Nature, and then Open Secrets stays at number 3. Then Lock and Key, Mission at 5. 6 is Turn the Page. 7 is Time Stand Still. 8, High Water. 9, Taishan. And 10 is Force 10. Not as much deep thought for this one. But
especially putting Force 10 at 10th. Not as much thought went into that.
Force 10.
Oh yeah, Force 10 at 10.
That's okay. Hold on. That's the kind of thing though the guys would do. Like that's the kind of thing
they
Rush
did it with 7 Cities of Gold and
exactly.
It's funny. Like they would do that.
Yeah.
But also, before I even knew the album order, I would like listen to the song like in high school. I would listen to them on YouTube and try to listen to them on YouTube because there was a time period in like 2014 where YouTube like took off like every like individual song. So like I didn't know how. So I like got up. I was able to listen to the songs and I would listen to it kind of like I kind of made my own order before I even knew what the order was, and that's kind of how it came out. And the same thing that I applied for Force 10 also applies to Prime Mover and Second Nature. Prime 1, second is second. It's like I think it works too. I actually listened to it in this order earlier today, and it did flow well.
I didn't catch that until you just said it.
Really?
I didn't.
Yeah,
but it's kind of brilliant, even though I'm shaking my head just because I know you. It's still kind of brilliant.
Yeah.
So did it just feel right to keep Taishan and High Water right next to each other, even though they're flipped from the original? Does it just feel right?
Yeah,
to have them?
with Taishan and High Water, I kind of was like, because I kind of had 1 through 7, and I was like, and I knew Force 10 was gonna be 10, so it kind of just evened out that way. And I was like, how would it sound if High Water came before Taishan? And I thought it flowed a little better. And
my only concern is like, sorry, Pat, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but my only concern with that is like, so you know how like High Water is the last track on the album, and Taishan goes before it, but I feel like everybody stops at Taishan, and then like and High Water is like the deepest of the deep tracks in terms of Rush, even deeper than Taishan, because they hear Taishan, they're like, turn it off, and then and High Water is just like super obscure because of that. Yep. So like I'm just afraid having Taishan come on, and then so maybe High Water gets more love in this case, but having Taishan come on,
that is true,
and then right before Force 10, that's my only concern.
Hey, I've always said I think High Water is better than Taishan, so
yeah,
man, I like them both.
Well, imagine listening to Taishan and you're just like, and you don't like it, right? And you're like, okay, whatever, let's see what this last song, and then you just get blown away, right? So yeah, so
it's the makeup song for Taishan.
Yeah, exactly. And just think, like, like, what were you saying, Tristan?
I was just going to say I would be a bit concerned if Taishan was number 1.
Could you imagine, like, in a different universe where that was number 1 and that was like the radio hit?
That was the hit.
Oh my goodness gracious!
It'd be appropriate for us if it was number 2 on the track listing.
Yeah, that would work too.
Because it's crap. To number 2. All right.
But yeah, before I finish, and then Lock and Key, Mission, Turn the Page. That's just like the meat of the sandwich, I never get tired of like those 3 songs in particular. So just having them there is just perfect. And then Time Stand Still at 7. A nice treat, kind of in the middle to late part of the album. And yeah, so that's my rendition.
I love how you kept Lock and Key, Mission, and Turn the Page as sort of in that same middle period. That kind of, as you said,
they're still in order.
Sandwich, and they're still in order.
Mm-hmm,
that is true.
Because I agree with you. I think they're very central tracks. They're very powerful. So keeping them right in the middle excuse me, to keep things interesting is very important. So
Oh
I agree with that for sure.
And Turn the Page should have been a hit, in my opinion. That
You've
that
got
should have been like, it's criminal that it only got played on one tour.
you've got Mission as closing the first side if you're looking at it on vinyl, and you've got Turn the Page opening the second side too, which is cool. I like it.
That's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. All right. Yeah. So Eric, if you want to go next.
All right. So continuing on our little journey back in time here, I'm rearranging Power Windows. So with side 1, on the original track listing, we have The Big Money, Grand Designs, Manhattan Project, and Marathon. And then with side 2 on the original, it's Territories, Middletown Dreams, Emotion Detector, and then Mystic Rhythms. And so the way I have chosen to rearrange it is on side 1, we have The Big Money again, and then Middletown Dreams, Emotion Detector, and closing with Mystic Rhythms. And on side 2, we have Manhattan Project, Territories, Grand Designs, and finishing up with Marathon. So I thought it only made sense to start with The Big Money, kind of like how Tristan stuck with Show Don't Tell for Presto. I think The Big Money just really works as the album opener. And then since The Big Money sort of fades out, I thought that since Middletown Dreams kind of fades in, it would work kind of as a smooth transition between the two. So then going to the third song, I have Emotion Detector. If it were up to me for the third song, I would put like a slow song, maybe a ballad, something like that in this spot. But on Power Windows, there really isn't a slow song unless you count Mystic Rhythms, but I like where I have that, so I didn't want to put that at 3. But when I was doing some reading, apparently Neil wrote the lyrics for Emotion Detector as a ballad, but then it fit the music for something that Getty and Alex had already written, so they just put it together. So I'm like, oh, what the heck? I don't know where else to put Emotion Detector. It'll go at 3. So then I closed side 1 with Mystic Rhythms because on the original, it closes the whole album. And I thought it's a good closer, but I think it's a good closer for a side 1 so that it keeps the listener intrigued. It's sort of mysterious. It's, you're wondering what comes next. And then you can get it right on a side 2 rather than waiting 2 years for the next album. So I have Mystic Rhythms closing side 1. And then side 2 opens up with Manhattan Project. Again, it's got sort of that quieter intro, just, the drums, kind of doing some patterns with the drums and some strings and things like that. And it builds and builds and builds. And to be a really fun, energetic song, I think this should have been a hit. This is one that I'm kind of bitter about. I love this song. It's not too long. It could have gotten radio play, whatever. So Manhattan Project. And then number 2 on side 2 is Territories. And the reason I put Territories after Manhattan Project is because it kind of builds on the themes from Manhattan Project, I think. Because Manhattan Project is like, it's the nuclear arms race, trying to get the big guns, and then Territories is talking about, we have these flags and we have people, waging wars against each other, killing, the lyrics escaping me right now. I'm sure one of you could fill me in, but it's about the color of the flag. It's escaping me right now, but
when the colorful flag is unfurled.
Yeah, when the colorful rag is unfurled. Yeah. Right. So I thought those two went really well together as a 1 and 2 punch. So then number 3 on side 2, the second to last song on the album is going to be Grand Designs. The reason I put that there is because I think it's a good runner-up as a closer. I think it sets the stage well for, you're almost at the end of the album, and there's not that many songs on Power Windows. There's just 8 songs. So I think Grand Designs is another, really fun, energetic song, one to get you going. And the reason I didn't put this one last is because it kind of has a fade out, and I didn't want to end the album with a song that faded out. So then my very last song is Marathon, and Marathon closes side 1 on the original. But on my order, it closes the whole album. And I did that because it's a very uplifting song. It's a very, go out and get them. You got to finish the race. You got to, stick with it for the long run. Just really, just get up and at 'em. And I thought it was a good way to close the album.
If I was a Rush professor, I would, and this was one of my assignments that I would give the students. I would give this an A+ for sure. That was an excellent rearrangement. No, I'm serious. That was excellent. I like the idea specifically of the territories following Manhattan Project, because it was like, the same theme.
Right.
And the idea of Manhattan Project opening side 2, I never thought of it, but it's like, after coming out with Mystic Rhythms, if you're on vinyl, you flip it over, it's like, you hear thunder and then the rolling drums with the synth pads, it's like, this is going to go somewhere. And it's a powerful song, so, yeah. Awesome.
I totally agree with that. The Manhattan Project Territories link is really good. And I feel like that's something like that would be like a Neil thing. Neil would be like, yeah, put these songs together. But the record companies have different ideas. I thought this was really good. It was very bold of you separating Manhattan Project and Marathon, because I always thought those songs were like linked together, because if you remember, what was it, on the Clockwork Angels tour, on different legs, they played those songs like right next to each other, and then on the other leg they would do
Marathon. I don't think they did Marathon.
They didn't play Marathon.
They didn't play Marathon.
They didn't play Marathon.
Marathon was Time Machine.
Time Machine where they played.
Time Machine.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Manhattan Project was not
I remember
like in the second set, I think.
And they flipped Middletown Dreams and Manhattan Project, I believe, back and forth on Clockwork Angels.
When I saw them live, they played Middletown Dreams and Territories.
Yep.
Those two were always grouped to me for some reason. So like.
Well, but yeah, same for that. What were you saying, Ryan?
No, just that. Like Territories and Manhattan, Territories and Middletown Dreams always were like grouped to me. Like I just always felt like it felt like they always kind of were like 1 and 2, or like 1A and 1B or whatever. So like splitting that is weird to me, but I like it. I mean, I even as the Power Windows nerd that I am, I like it.
Eric, I was glad that you moved Mystic Rhythms from the last song. I never felt like that was a good closer, to be honest. Like I heard Mystic Rhythms first from the R30 recording. So then when I bought the Power Windows album, I always thought a Motion Detector was the last song. Like I stopped the album after a Motion Detector because it always felt like that was it. That was the end. And then Mystic Rhythms was like a bonus track or something. Like it just never, it always felt out of place coming out, like, you know what I mean? Coming at the very end of the album.
I kind of thought of it as like, I kind of thought of it as like on Signals, you have Countdown that wraps up Signals on the original order. And I thought that was kind of weird in the same way that Mystic Rhythms closing an album is weird. It's not a bad song by any means. It's just an odd way to close out the album, which is why I put it as the closer to side 1 to kind of keep that intrigue and that mysterious up with it.
Well, that's a good transition to mine because I chose Signals. So I'll just,
of course you did.
I'll just, let's just get to it. So, so the approach that I took was, I always thought that Power Windows is the most balanced Rush album, not only in terms of track order, but in terms of you could argue that The Big Money is like the hit song, but there isn't really like a huge hit song from this album, or like one that really stands above the rest, in my opinion. So I chose Signals for mine, and because I always felt like what I think it was Eric just said, with Countdown at the end, I always felt like with New World Man losing it and Countdown at the end, that's, in my opinion, those are the 3 weakest tracks on the album. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the track listing first, and then we'll get into what I did. But so Signals track listing goes: Subdivisions, The Analog Kid, Chemistry, Digital Man, The Weapon, New World Man, Losing It, and Countdown. And my reimagined Signals goes like this: Subdivisions, The Analog Kid, Countdown, Digital Man, New World Man, Losing It, Chemistry, and The Weapon. So I made the Power Windows comparison here. So what I tried to do was, this is going to be kind of hard to explain, but I'll try to do it. I tried to take the way Power Windows is structured and compare and contrast songs, because there's 8 and 8. There's 8 songs in each, and construct signals like look at the songs and signals and kind of match them to songs in Power Windows and make it flow. So with Power Windows, it opens with the Big Money, which is I get probably the most popular track, right? So we keep Subdivisions as the most popular track on Signals. Grand Designs is the second track on Power Windows. I kept The Analog Kid for 2 reasons as the second track, because I always felt like Subdivisions and The Analog Kid were kind of grouped together. They always flowed well, perfectly to me. And Grand Designs is kind of I don't want to say, it's not too obscure, but it's kind of like a beloved, deeper Rush cut. And so is The Analog Kid. So I figured that those kind of went hand in hand. 3 on Power Windows is Manhattan Project. 3 on my reimagined Signals is Countdown. 2 historical songs. Plain and simple. That's it. And I moved Countdown from the bottom because I always felt like that didn't really work as a closing track. Marathon is 4, closes side 1 on Power Windows. And to me, the only really comparable track, mainly just in terms of the length, and it's kind of just a fun song. They're both kind of fun songs. Digital Man. I didn't move that. I didn't move that from its closing spot on side 1. I felt that it was perfectly fine as a closer for side 1, and it, like I said, it's kind of comparable to Marathon. Opening side 2 on Power Windows is Territories, and my comparable to that was New World Man. It was the only thing that really fit. For some reason, New World Man just doesn't click for me, but it clicks for a lot of people. A lot of people love it. And that was probably the second most popular track from Signals, so I had it open side 2. Track number 6 is on Power Windows is Middletown Dreams, which is kind of a slower-ish song. So I took Losing It from Signals and put that as the side-by-side comparison in my head, and put it there. Power Windows track 7 is a Motion Detector, which is kind of an obscure track that some hardcore Rush fans love. So I took Chemistry from Signals, which is another obscure track that didn't get much love, but a lot of hardcore Rush fans like it. And both of those 2 songs have killer guitar solos in them, so I just figured that was a nice comparison. And then last, with Mystic Rhythms, Nick, I can kind of understand where you're coming from, where you say Mystic Rhythms isn't really that great of a closer. I get it. But for me, I just went with The Weapon for the closer, because The Weapon it's kind of similar in length to Mystic Rhythms, I guess. But The Weapon's just like a haunting song, and it just, to me, it was kind of just shoved in the middle of Signals, and I feel like it could have served as a really awesome closing track on Signals. So I'll read my track listing again real quick, my reimagined Signals track listing, and then we can discuss if you want. But Subdivisions, The Analog Kid, Countdown, Digital Man, New World Man, Losing It, Chemistry, and The Weapon. So not too many changes, but then again, when you only have 8 tracks, there's only so many changes you can make.
Exactly. So. I like it a lot. It was really important that you kept Subdivisions at number 1. Because to be honest, anywhere else just wouldn't make any sense, even as like a side 2 first song, and when you come to think of like Subdivisions, like it really was like Rush's last mega hit when you really think about it. And I think that like adds more, just more importance to that song. So like all the way, that song is number one, except for obviously like a greatest hits album. But that song, it deserves to be a number one, for its respective album.
It's a good intro song. The intro clock store with it, and it was awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
It was like, boom, we're here. We're starting the show.
Exactly.
Yeah, you don't move that, right?
It's just like Spirit and Tom Sawyer. You don't. If I was doing one of those albums, I wouldn't move those two either.
Exactly. 100%.
Oh, don't give it away. You just ruled out 2 albums that you might be doing. So don't.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jake.
Yeah.
Come on, who's really going to do those albums? Like, those are the 2 picks.
That's fair.
Who's going to do, like, really? I'm going to put the Camera Eye second. Yeah.
That's fair.
Well,
I mean, yeah. What do you guys think of my signals? My reimagined signals.
I really agree with the weapon, and even more than just the drummer's point of view. I always felt that song was so dark and mysterious in its own right, and I always felt that. Which
is the Mystic Rhythms comparison too, in a way.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, because I love Mystic Rhythms too, but I always thought, I never really was outspoken about the weapon's placement in the order, original signal, but I guess subconsciously I always thought having it open side 2 is kind of an awkward place to put it.
It is.
For some odd reason. So I thought, you know what, once you read your track listing, that whole, going through the motions of, first chorus, and that whole crazy instrumental section with Alex's solo and everything, and then it all melts away with that fade out. I thought that would have been a very odd but powerful way to end signals. So I agree with that specifically.
Yeah, and kind of going with that, the real big thing I noticed was also with the weapon as the closing track. I don't know if it was Rush themselves that said it or someone that noticed it in a book, or I don't know what it was, but about Rush, kind of hinting at what they're going to do in their next album on the album previous. So like Moving Pictures, they did Vital Signs, which was kind of a hint at what they were going to do in Signals. And putting the weapon as the last track on Signals kind of hints at, Grace Under Pressure coming up next is going to be a little bit darker and a little bit more intense than anything else we had done before. So that's the big thing I noticed from your order.
I agree with that.
Good observation.
Hey, sure. Eric, that actually, what makes really good sense about that too is the fact that the weapon sounds like it could be on the Grace Under Pressure album, because it sounds great on the Grace Under Pressure live album.
Yes, it does.
Which is the best live album ever made.
But I really like that you mentioned that, like Vital Signs going into Signals. Just the whole reggae aspect, like you have it in Vital Signs, and then you have it in Digital Man too. So it definitely would work. Digital Man, like that's such a pivotal song. It's like that was a song that made Terry Brown leave. If you remember, their producer for like I don't know how many years, he was like, "Yeah, this song sucks," and then Rush was like, "No, we like it," and he's like, oh, "Okay, well, if you leave it the way it is, I'm out of here." And then they did, and then he's gone. So I feel like Digital Man is like such an important song too, and it's good that you left it where it was, Ryan. Because it's good.
I just thought
it's also a good closer.
Sense,
it's a good closer to the first side of the the vinyl too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh yeah. No, go ahead.
I was just going to say really quickly, if I may, Alex's solo on the weapon is so.
Oh yeah,
it's perfect.
It's too good.
I said on something recently. I think I said it on Something for Nothing podcast. Shout out to those guys. But I think I said it on there where that solo fits that song absolutely perfectly. Like, I don't know if there's any other guitar solo and any other Alex solo that fits a song more perfectly than the solo in the weapon.
Yeah.
But we don't have to discuss that now. But But
we could have our own roundtable.
We could.
Yeah. It doesn't matter how many times I listen to that song, I'm speechless after I listen to that solo.
Yeah, it's so
and
good.
Just the power. I know that Alex is pretty spontaneous with the solos. Sometimes he'll take a bit from like one take and then to learn to play it through together. But regardless of how he composed that, it was perfect the way he did that.
Exactly.
All right, Nick. Why don't you take us home?
Okay, so I actually, when we first decided to do this, I was kind of struggling which album I wanted to actually do because I knew all the 80s albums would be pretty much taken, except for the two I mentioned earlier, which I wasn't going to touch because why would I? I actually thought about doing Clockwork Angels as a joke when you literally can't change that album because it matches with a book. So I went way back in time to an album that I finally realized actually does need a lot of change up. It's my dad's favorite album, actually, and it's an album I really like. I decided to do Fly By Night. And this was the first album with Neil recording, too, so I don't know if that affected the song arrangement or not. But the original for it, excuse me, is Anthem, Best I Can, Beneath, Between, and Behind, Bytor and the Snow Dog, Fly By Night, Making Memories, Rivendell, and In the End. So I decided that I didn't like... The two big factors for me in this were, one, I didn't like the idea of having two acoustic / slow songs. Granted, In the End isn't slow necessarily the whole time. It does go into a more epic, but I didn't like the idea of having two acoustic slow songs back to back. I like it to be a little chopped up, just like in a concert. You have your big banger, and then okay, we need to relax. Then okay, we're chill. All right, banger, chill, like rhythm. So my list, I'm just going to read my list off and I'll describe what I did a little different than anybody else. I have Anthem, then Fly By Night, Best I Can, Rivendell, Beneath, Between, Behind, In the End, and Bytor. And the things that made me decide to do these is first off, Anthem, like everybody else on here.
I think you missed one. Didn't you miss one?
No, I didn't. No, I didn't. I'm glad you noticed that, though. The thing I liked about Anthem is that I think it's a perfect, like, it just comes out, punches you in the face, grabs hold and says, listen to this album, you know, like, if you're into records. Now, again, I thought a little bit of this, since we're talking about, you know, how we're younger fans and we listen using Spotify, or like for me, you know, I used to go to like Circuit City and listen to the demos on the headsets. Do you guys remember that? You remember the demo on the headset? I used to do that. And so like I would listen to one of these albums. Well, if you're doing that, Anthem's a perfect thing to grabs hold of you and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, this is cool. So I think Anthem's perfect to start. I like the idea of the title track / well, I guess at the time was actually a pretty big hit in the 70s and then disappeared. The band forgot they made it, I guess, never played it live. I thought Fly By Night was perfect to come right after Anthem. Best I Can is a nice, still kind of rockish song, but like a little more chiller than Fly By Night. And then we go into Rivendell, which is kind of quiet. And then Beneath, Between, Behind, which is a lot more upbeat. The thing that I picked up on, the reason why I have Rivendell right before Beneath, Between, Behind, on the Exit Stage Left album, they play Closer to the Heart. And at the end, which is acoustic on the recording, but not in that, they play Closer to the Heart and then go right into Beneath, Between, Behind. And I always loved that transition. I thought it flowed so great. So I thought Rivendell and the Beneath, Between, Behind would sound great. And I listened to it and it was really good. And then I don't like In the End as a closer. I don't. I know it says In the End, but I don't like it. And I thought, again, let's have, all right, we had a big, powerful song. Now let's go with this. I mean, it's a ballad and it does get heavy at one point, but let's go with a slower, chill song. And then finishing the album with Bytor, it's, faster, harder hitting. But B, I decided to match, Ryan, kind of how you matched Power Windows and Signals. Well, I was thinking about Rush in the 70s and how they finished all their albums back then, other than 2112, with really long songs. La Villa Strangiato on Hemispheres, which I'm wearing the tour shirt. Cygnus on Farewell to Kings. Obviously, Fountain and Necromancer on side 2 of Crest of Steel.
Working Man even.
Working Man even, exactly. Like all those. So I thought By-Tor should be the finisher. Plus, let's be honest, this was Rush's second album. So to me, I wanted to try to get all the songs that I thought would be like hits right away, just because, you know, you're trying to, they hadn't made it yet. Like they weren't the Rush we know now yet. Yeah. Now, Ryan, you mentioned that I forgot a song. I did not. I purposely took Making Memories, excuse me.
Ripped it up, threw it in the trash. And...
No. I took Making Memories off this album, and I want it saved for Caress of Steel. Because I think Making Memories, in all honesty, of all the songs on this list, to me, Making Memories would have been the most... I'm surprised they didn't go with this. To me, it's a song that should have been very radio friendly. And I think it could have been the song that they were able to give, you know, the big shots at the recording studio, you know, the radio station's recording studios. This could have been their, you know, shorter radio friendly hit on Caress of Steel to help that album out.
That's a really good point.
Yeah, and because that album doesn't have, I mean, Bastille Day is great, but I mean, I like a lot of the songs down, but let's be honest here. There's nothing on that album that really you throw on the radio. And so to me, I think Making Memories, had they held on to that for Caress of Steel, it could have been their radio-friendly song for that.
That's a fair point.
Yeah, I never thought of that. Now, I have a question. I know we're getting close to time, but Nick, since you mentioned it, where on the Caress of Steel track listing would you put Making Memories?
I'd probably drop it second, because Bastille Day is a perfect intro for the album.
Yeah.
And then I'd want Making Memories to be like...
You could slot the 2 long songs and have that be side 2, because isn't Fountain side 2, right? And Necromancer's on side 1. So you could just slot the 2 long songs to the side 2 and then have Bastille Day, Making Memories, I think I'm going Bald, and Lakeside Park as side 1.
Yeah, and that would make a nice, and honestly, that would push the Necromancer, so then the side 2 would be the two
epics.
And then that side 1 would basically nothing but shorter, you know, like friendlier mainstream songs.
It might make Caress of Steel more radio friendly, and maybe Gene Simmons would have gotten it at that point.
Yeah. Now, granted, I'm glad they didn't, because then maybe it's a hit and Rush continues on that same track. Maybe we don't get 2112.
That's true.
Because they're not pissed off at the radio stations. So.
Yeah, exactly. I always thought Making Memories and what was it, Lakeside Park, give up a similar vibe. So
they do.
That's really
That's true.
One of the things I was hoping for is that you would put By-Tor at the end, because I think it's a good closing track. And then I don't know if it's on the original vinyl or if it was some special release vinyl where the bells at the very end just go on and on and on when you're playing it on vinyl. Like, it'll just keep spinning and it won't stop.
Yeah.
That's called Locked Groove, I think.
Yeah, so I don't know if that was the original vinyl or if that was some special release, but if they release your order on vinyl, having the whole album end, or never end, that would be really cool.
Then there would be no Caress of Steel, so there you go. just rings out into Bastille Day.
Right.
Literally.
All right.
Exactly.
That was a lot of fun.
That was really fun. I enjoyed that a lot.
A lot of good choices too.
Exactly.
A lot of thought put into this. We could totally do this as a part 2 if it
definitely
if received well. I mean, the only thing I'm afraid of is, well, if you're a viewer and you've watched this far, well, you probably enjoyed it, but I'm just afraid people are going to see the topic and be like, no, Rush is perfect. Everything they touch is gold, and they're not going to give this idea a chance. But yeah,
at least the Twitter section will. So we won't share that on Twitter. But otherwise, I think we're good, and I think we could wrap this episode nicely. So thank you guys for watching this episode. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and also hit the notification bell, because you want to get notified when we upload a video, so you want to be the first to watch it. Yeah. So also use the comment section to continue this discussion. Tell us what album you would rearrange, and I'll be checking the comments. I know Ryan will be checking the comments. And yeah, so definitely comment, and yeah, take care, everybody. Have a good one.